So welcome to the Faculty of Information, the University of Toronto iSchool. And a special welcome to Professor Yves Pigneur from the University of Lausanne. He's a professor there and recently a co-dean.
Oh, I used to be. I stopped last.
So very happily he's on visit here in Canada, and we're very glad to have him talk to us today. So a few years ago, in this very room, Professor Pigneur told us about the newly completed work with doctoral student Alexander Osterwalder. Well, the business model ontology, BMO. By the way, that does not mean that Montreal. Little did I know that it was going to become an international bestseller and internet sensation. But I should not have been surprised because his work gave a very clear and practical understanding of what business models are. So I have incorporated in my courses long before it became a worldwide phenomenon. Okay, so as you may know, in this faculty, there are several concentrations that have a design orientation. For example, information systems design, knowledge media design. And so designing business models should also fit into that mode. And so I'm very excited today to have Professor Pigneur tell us about business model design and innovation, and perhaps he'll also give us some hints on how to turn your dissertation into a multi-million-dollar business. So, Professor Pigneur.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here for this reason, because when I presented that in 2004, it was just the pure academic vision of this model. And now it will be a little bit different. And so we will I will present you a few moments. And Eric also asked me to illustrate this business model, not only with pure profit kind of company, but also with some kind of social business. And I choose some example, you will see that later. Okay, so the discussion today and the presentation will be about how does one come up with success business model. But before that, I will present you very shortly some companies. This one you know very, okay, Amazon.com, this one, okay, Google, this one, Grameen ecosystem, okay. And so my question is, what do those examples have in common? And I will suggest three answers. The first one is they didn't focus only on product innovation. They empowered the product or the service innovation through a business model. And I will present what I consider as a business model. The second one is they didn't just copy existing business models. So it was not a decision to choose between this one and this one, but they had to create something. They had to invent a new business model. And third, it was impossible to prove that they had a good idea. No, it's very easy to say, oh, Amazon, successful, or Google, successful, or. But at the beginning, when you launch a company, it's not possible. Okay, so based on those three questions, and if you agree, and the last part is in fact the entrepreneurial aspects of this design. I will present that today in three different phases. The first one, I will try to present what I consider as the business model. And I know that we have some experts in business model in a different place in this room. But I will remind you what are the concepts behind, and I will try to illustrate this canvas. Second, I will try to choose, and I will pick up one design thinking technique that we could apply for designing business model. That's one. And very shortly at the end, I will try to explain you how is it possible to test a business model before launching the company, before to launching the product. It's related to what we call now customer development or this kind of thing, or lean startup. I have no idea about your expectation, because at the beginning it was, I think, considered as a kind of tool for academy, and so academics, and so I prepared something a little bit different to show the transition between business model ontology and business model canvas. But after he told me, oh, maybe there are some people coming from different areas and so on. So I have no idea. So clearly it's not a big deep dive because we have 1 hour, a little bit more than 1 hour, so it won't be possible to go very deep in the different concepts and different models that I will use today. And so we will remain at the surface of the things. That's the idea. But in 1 hour, you will have all the blocks in your hands, and so it will be possible to practice a little bit. And I will try to avoid, especially at this hours, this phenomena, and to avoid that you will sleep. And to keep this audience very active, I will suggest you, if you agree, to play with me to some kind of game. So you will see in a few moments. So go. And so the first step is the business model. What is it? What's the business model? But before that, you know, I come from Switzerland. I come from Lausanne on the Geneva Lake. And we drink a lot of coffee. And I will ask you a question. 10 years ago, a Swiss household used to spend 100 Swiss francs. Consider $100 for drinking coffee, roughly 8 kilos. Okay? 10 years later, do you have an idea of how much a Swiss household spends for coffee? Do you think that it's more or less? More, yeah, clear. 50% more? So, a lot more? Okay, so guess? 2, 3%? 200%?
No, 20%.
20% more, so less than 600. But he knows the answer. It's not fair. So exactly, it's roughly between 8 and 6 times. So it means that we spend 600 to 800 for drinking coffee at home. But in fact, we don't drink much more coffee, still roughly 8 kilos. But because of this phenomena, okay, and so it means that the coffee that we have in these small capsules is roughly 6 times much more expensive than the coffee that we had 10 years before. Okay, so keep that in mind. Do you know Nespresso, the Nespresso company? Ooh. Okay, so now you will take 2 minutes with your neighbors to tell me what you consider as the business model of Nespresso. Very shortly, you discuss with your neighbor and you have to tell me the business model of Nespresso is to offer coffee, all right? Okay, we stop and we will take one vision of what's the business model of Nespresso.
So whatever I say is her words. I'm just
Okay, so choose.
Okay, so echo her words. They lock you in with the machine and then you have to buy from them.
Okay, so the business model is to lock in you with the machine and to sell coffee.
And the equipment.
And
additional equipment, is that right?
Okay, maybe.
Capsules.
Capsules, correct. Another vision of what's the business model of Nespresso?
I was going to say the same like printer.
Same,
sell you the printer.
Sell the printer and charge a ink. Another vision?
I thought that maybe to remove this hassle of cleaning and stuff and just.
Okay, so we have maybe 2 or 3 different visions. It seems that this one is quite similar to this one. This one is maybe another one.
Maybe there's one other thing I would add, which is if there's been a change in consumer taste generally towards more premium coffees or more a different way to
A kind of experience of coffee at home.
the coffee experience, then they allow people the convenience of bringing that experience into their home by simply having an inventory of the stuff.
Okay. Okay, so good. We stop here. So it means that since you were able to discuss what's the business model of Nespresso, it means that you have an idea of what's a business model, correct? So take 2 minutes, no, and you have to tell me what's a business model. And I will ask, what's a business model, or what's a business model? So the next question is, you discuss with, with your neighbor, and you tell me what's a business model is. Correct? 2 minutes again. You don't play with me. Okay, stop. You have roughly an idea. What's a business model?
So first of all, it's a model.
It's a model.
So it's an abstraction of a business which
Abstraction of a business.
Right, which focuses on the main high-level view of that business. Like
Focus on the main high level of business. Stop there. The 3 main components are there. Another vision of what's a business model? Here?
It's a specific way how a business makes money.
Okay, specific way of making money.
Strategic advantage.
Strategic advantage. Yeah?
Starts with finding a way to solve a big pain in the market.
Solving a big pain in the market.
And then converting that into a business.
Convert into a business.
Generate profit that will sustain
And
the
generate profitability and
sustain the
sustainability.
business and allow it to grow and transform
Stop.
the way people live and work.
Okay, good. Many definitions here. Okay, so you have at least 2 or 3 different visions of what's a business model. Since you don't work for the same company, it's not a big issue, okay? But think that if you work for the same company and you have to define the business model of your next activity or your next startup, it will be very difficult to speak about something, because when you will speak, it will be about a business, a model trying to describe a business. There it will be making money. There it will be trying to be sustainable and profitable. And so if you have this kind of thing, you have this phenomena. So it means that you have the Babel Tower, and what we wanted to have was a common language to share this language the time we defined the business model. It was the initial idea that we had a long time ago. So to have a common language. And because in some other field in the business side, if you speak about some concept in, for example, accounting, normally most of the accountants share the same meaning for the object they mentioned, P&L and this kind of thing. And it was not true, and I think it's still not true for business model. Even if when we run a workshop inside the same company with people coming from the same company, they don't share the same meaning for this concept. Okay. So we wanted to have 3 characteristics for this common language. First, we wanted to have something simple. And here I put a baby. In fact, in mine, we had the CEO of the company. They don't like complex model because they have specialists inside their company to manipulate models. First. Second, we wanted to have something, we call that holistic, means we want to cover different parts of the company, operations, marketing, product innovation, finance, different things, a different field if you want, but where each piece fits together. It was the idea. And third, we wanted to have something which is visual, something that we can see and manipulate and use for designing business models in our case. That was the 3 main characteristics. And you will see very briefly.
This is the story of Beth, her friend Carl, and an idea they believed could become a great business. It's the story of how they succeeded. And if you're an entrepreneur or anyone with a great idea, it could easily be your story too. But let's begin at the beginning. See, even if you have a great idea, success is far from assured. That's because for every great idea that has shaped our world, there are thousands of seemingly great ideas that have flopped. In order to succeed, a great business idea needs a great business model, and they're not the same thing. Once your idea meets the world, it will meet customers. They don't care about the problem your idea solves for them. It's game over. But even if customers love your value proposition, you can fail if your business model is not scalable and financially sustainable. You'll need to find reliable channels to reach and acquire customers. You'll need to build an infrastructure that won't collapse as your business begins to grow. Failing to do just one of these things can mean death to your business, however great your idea is. That's why your first work is to search for the right business model, to map this world of challenges so it can be tamed and organized, allowing you to explore it, manage it, and plan for it. What if there was a tool that could help you with this challenge, simply and visually? A tool that makes it easier to stress test your ideas, track your progress, and avoid breaking the bank along the way. What if
So you have roughly seen the concept, and I will try to pass through those different concepts very quickly. So the first one is the targets. Okay, so the customer segment, the people that you have in mind when you launch this business. I mainly address to the young or the whole people or the people in Asia or different kinds. The second component is, the middle one is the product, if you want, what we call the value proposition. So the product, the service, the different benefits for the customers. So it means that what you offer to the customer is related to, you try to address a big pain or you try to increase the gain for the customer with your value proposition. So it's and I heard here in this room that you were quite focused on this product. You say, with this product, I can make money. With this machine, I can make money. But maybe sometimes it's a little bit more complex, so it's a complex object to manipulate. We will see that later. The third component is the distribution channel, the way you reach the customers. It could be something for to try to awake the customer that you have something interesting. It could be something a channel to get the order for the customers, to send them the goods or the different stuff you want to deliver. So it means that the way of reaching the customer, it could be a distribution partner, it could be a distribution network, a sales force, it could be internet if you are in the e-commerce, it could be a mobile device to allowing the customers to choose something. And the fourth component is the customer relationship. So it means the nature of the relationship you want to maintain with your customers. Some examples. If you are a big retailer, your customer enter the shops, buy something, leave, and it's purely anonymous. They are anonymous. But if you buy your third luxury watch, a Swiss watch, it means that you are very well known. Okay, so Mr. Pigneur, the kids, and so on. So it's a very personalized relationship. And in the middle, for example, you have Amazon.com, because with their recommending systems, they could simulate in a way a kind of semi-personalized relationship. Or choose another example. You are a mobile telecom operator. At the beginning, you want to attract customers. So you are in the acquisition mode to get customers inside your company. A couple of years later, you prefer to keep the old customers, the good customers, and you switch from an acquisition to a retention kind of relationship. That's the idea of a customer relationship. And finally, one component that you mentioned there is you have to make money to be sustainable. So it means that you have to generate some revenue streams coming from your customers just to survive, okay, or eventually to make profit. That's the idea. So it's the revenue streams. This is the right-hand side, and we call that the front stage, because all of those components, the customers can see them. And we think, and we thought at that time, that we also have to address the backstage, if you want. Okay, so what you need to have or to do to be able to offer this value proposition to the customers. The first component is, we call that the key resources. Could be the capabilities, the know-how you have, or sometimes some physical assets you have, like factories or fleet, transportation fleet, or some resources you have which are physical or intangible, a know-how or something, or pattern, for example. And when you have a tool, you can do something. So when you have a key resources, you can do something is the value chain, which is what we call the key activities, the main processes of the company. Okay, so it means that what you do to be able to offer this. At this level of aggregation, which is at this business level, so it's not a deep dive inside the value chain, it's just the main activities that you have to do to operate, to conduct, to be able to offer this value proposition. Some of those activities you are too small, for example, to operate, or some of the resources you need to have, you are too small because maybe those resources are too expensive, and so sometimes you need to sign some contracts or some agreements with key partners. Okay, just because, for example, if you want to transport your goods inside the city of Toronto and the different suburbs, and you send your salad that you can order in the internet, you need maybe, I don't know, 50 vehicles or 50 cars just to bring those food at home or to your customers. So maybe if you have a startup, it's too expensive to get it. And so you have to sign a contract with a distribution company or a logistics company. That's the idea. And finally, all those three components have some cost. And so you have the last component is what we call the cost structure. Because we are not, at this stage, we are not interested in the cost details, but just the structure of the cost. An example, Skype and a telecom operator do the same in a way. They allow you to speak with somebody else and to have a conversation on this. But if you look at the structure, the cost structure is very different. One is related mainly to the infrastructure. That's the telecom operator, because they have a network. And Skype has no network. And so the costs are mainly related to the software development. So by this way, Skype is much more similar to Microsoft or Oracle than Rogers. That's the idea. Okay, and so here are the 9 components that we suggested, and we still suggest to use for describing business models. And the idea was to have, you remember, a visual way of representing that. And so that's the main difference between 2004, when I presented those concepts with just boxes and rows and relationship between those boxes at that time. And between 2004 and 2008, we simplified the model, and we came with this visual representation with 9 blocks represented as 9 places on the canvas, if you want. And so if you put a post-it here, it means that it's a key resources. If you bring this and you put that there, it means it was not a resource, but it was an activity. So the location of one post-it gives the meaning of this object. And this canvas, the business model canvas, which is on in a CC license, has been downloaded maybe 2 million times or something. Okay, and I will illustrate this with a very short example. Do you know this Grameenphone company? No, you know? Yes, I know. Okay, so a very short video. This is the founder of the company.
What is it that they really do? So what happens is that somebody borrows money from the bank. She typically buys a cow. The cow gives milk, and she sells the milk to the villagers and pays off the loan. And this is a business for her, but it's milk for everybody else. And suddenly I realized that a cell phone could be a cow, because she would borrow $200 from the bank, get a phone, and have the phone for everybody, and it's a business for her. So I wrote to the bank, and they talked for a while, and they said, a little crazy but logical, if you think it can be done, come on, make it happen. So I quit my job, I went back to Bangladesh.
Okay, so the idea was to create a new mobile telecom operator in Bangladesh, this part of the world, but with a second idea, a social goal, if you want, related to give a kind of revenue for those ladies. It was the idea they had in mind. Okay, what was the business model, or still the business model of Grameenphone? It was the following one. You offer as a traditional telecom operator the mobile connectivity to villagers. Those villagers will bring you a revenue stream based on the communication they will have using these phones and this infrastructure. So it means since it's a normal telecom operator, they had to adapt the left-hand side part. So it means that they had to have a network, they had to buy the license to operate this business. This license is offered by they had to pay this license to the government. And the main activities are the traditional activities you have for a telecom operator is you have to maintain the network, you have to maintain the contract with your customers, and you have to offer some services on this network. But when they launched this one, they had no expertise for creating this from scratch. And so they make a big agreement, a big partnership with Telenor, which is the main network operator in Norway. Okay, so they deploy the infrastructure and they manage and they help Grameenphone to manage this one. That's the first part. And here we come with the social mission, if you want, related to this business. Okay, they say the ladies in the village could be the channel for them, for reaching the villagers. So it means that the lady has the phone, and if you want to phone to somebody to sell your stuff or your goods somewhere else, you have to borrow this phone and you have to pay for this, which is normal because it's a revenue coming from the communication. But those ladies will be also a customer for them. So they have offer an income opportunity to those phone ladies. And those ladies doesn't bring money in yours, so we have only one kind of customers bringing or generating the revenue, people calling or people using the phone. But those ladies will have an income opportunity based on a kind of percentage on those communications. That's a way of using this model. And so you need to have another channel because phone ladies are not a channel for reaching phone ladies as a customer. So it means that they use the Grameen branches from the Grameen Bank. They make an agreement with this Grameen Bank. So we could consider that the phone ladies are micro entrepreneurs. And they had to have a new activity in their model, which is not purely related to the mobile telecom operations, but related to the fact that they have to recruit those ladies, they have to reach those ladies to present the product and to trying to get them as customers. Okay, and the result, they were the number, each village phone ladies makes roughly $2-3 per day. So it means that the 250,000 women retaining the phone services in 60,000 give access to the phone to 100 million people. And those represent annual turnover of 100 million. And it was the leading mobile telecom operator in the country after a couple of years. That's the model. And I try to illustrate the business model for a kind of social business, but it is a special business in the sense that it's not a pure donation based. So it means that it's a micro entrepreneur one. So they make profit and Telenor has to be paid and this kind of thing. It's not a pure donation, but the impact is huge on the phone ladies, on the ladies in the village. That's the idea. Okay, I'm coming back to this idea of coffee with Nespresso. You remember Nespresso, the idea was to offer, the machine and the capsules, but it was also to offer a kind of experience of good coffeeetto. And the idea a long time ago was to offer a coffee as good as the coffee inside the best cafe in Romas. It was the idea at that time. And they tried to come with an idea to put coffee in a bag, like tea, but it was not good at that time. Why? Because coffee loses its smell very quickly. And so Eric Favre, the inventor of the capsules and the machine, when he was working as the one head of the lab inside Nestle, when in Italy, he stopped in Roma, in the best cafe in Roma, and he chat with the guy. What kind of coffee you use, and blah, blah, and so. And you remember at that time, in the end of the 70s, you had those machines. And the guy said, oh, yeah, but you have always to purge those machines because there are some airs in the tubes. Okay, and he went back, and a couple of days after, Eric, you are stupid. You forgot that to have a good coffee, it's not only coffee and water, it's coffee, water, and air under pressure. Why? Because it creates bubble at the surface of the things, and those bubbles come in your mouth, and this gives you this feeling of smells and so on inside your mouth. Exactly as a little bit as the same as Coca-Cola and so on. And it was the idea. And from this time, the product stayed the same. Okay, so the product has been manufactured and so on. It was exactly the same product that they created 20 years, no, roughly 25 or 30 years ago. It's exactly the same product. And we will try to define the business model of Nespresso because you mentioned that you know Nespresso and you had a feeling of what it is. So we will use the canvas for describing the different parts of this business model or what you consider as the main blocks for the business model. And inside, and you will have 6 minutes for doing this exercise. And so the idea is under this umbrella to offer good coffee at home, as good as in Roma. The idea is mainly based on machine and capsules. Okay, so you buy the machine once and you buy capsules every week or every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on your own consumption. In 6 minutes, it's very quick, so it means that it could be quite difficult to reach this objective. And so here I have the canvas. I will give you those canvas, and you will try to create this business model. But to go quicker and to finish in less than 6 minutes, in 6 minutes max, it means that you have here tags, and you put the right tags at the right place. And so it means that you will cover all the 9 blocks. You will have a kind of very short first experience of creating this business model. So it means that here you have the so you have, for example, the machine here, and so you decide, okay, the machine is clearly part of the value proposition, so you have to put that in the middle. And the idea is to trying to find the different components of the business model. And we will discuss after the advantage, the problem of this business model, why it's not related directly to the product, or yes, or so here it's 1 for 2 or 3. Yeah, good. So maybe you put here. Are you ready?
There are very thin lines between sex and
You can decide if it's a customer, if it's a time. Yeah, sure. That's the reason why. It's a tool, so you do what you want with a tool. It depends on what you consider. Because here I've given those tags, so it means that I had a meaning in mind, and maybe you give a different meaning to those tags. So the reason why you consider that the retailer could be a partner. Okay, stop please, and come back in the room. I will pass through this model very quickly, and I will ask you some questions at the end. And I know this exercise is a little bit strange because I had a meaning in my mind when I designed those things or draw those things. And so it's different here because maybe you give a different meaning to this kind of small drawing. Okay, so but roughly the business model of Nespresso is the following one. You have the machine and the capsules, which correspond to this idea of having an experience of good coffee at home, and you offer to two different kinds of customers, which are the households at home and the offices or businesses. And why is different? Because it seems that you offer the same thing. It's a little bit different. Why? I don't know if you are familiar, but a couple of years ago, you have seen some different kinds of capsules. The normal one that you know at home, and some flat one that you can see only in the offices, only in the businesses. So it means that this customer segment asked Nespresso to provide a different kind of. Why? Because when it's the same, you have a machine at home, you have a machine at the office. At the office, they provide you with the capsules. So it means you can take those capsules back home and use the coffee at home. Never in Canada, but some places it happens. And so that's the reason why they have interest to distinguish, and they have two, if you want, kind of products, two capsules, two different entry for the capsule. The channel. At the beginning, it was a mail order company. So it was possible to order the capsules using the mail, using the call center, and it was possible to find only the machine in the retailer, not the coffee. The coffee you had to pass through the mail or the call center. When the e-commerce came in the 90s, at the beginning of the 2000s, they introduced the Nespresso.com. So it's an e-commerce channel. And much more recently, they introduced the Nespresso stores. Then you have here in Toronto, they have in roughly 180 cities in the world, very luxury stores where you can find both coffee machine and different kind of merchandising and some stuff around it. The customer relationship is based on this club ID. So it means when you buy the machine, you receive 5 kilos documentation, you are a member to the life of this club, you will receive special offer at Christmas, blah, blah, and so on. So they try to have a very high select kind of relationship with the customers. And the revenue is exactly what you mentioned. It means they make a revenue with the machine, but mainly with the capsules. Okay, printer, ink, same mark. The key resources, they had some factories. Why? Because they have to send millions of capsules per day. So they have huge factories providing the customers with those capsules. They have the brand for them, so the Nespresso brand is highly evaluated, and they have a lot of patents. They have roughly 300 patents on this machine and the capsules. And in some countries, like Switzerland, United States, France, we know that it's a huge resources for them because they had to go to the court for defending those patents. Because some people know, some companies know, manufactures this kind of capsule, but not the machine. And so it's possible to put some fakes inside the same machine. And Nespresso doesn't like this one. The key activities are related to marketing activities, Clooney if you want, manufacturing, only the capsules, and distribution. And since the beginning, they never manufactured the machine. So since the beginning, they had some strong partnership with the big names in this industry. Bosch in Germany, Tumix in Switzerland, Moulinex in France at that time, and some others here. So they never, and they had some, and they keep those contracts for now 20 years. Long-term contract with some partners here, and the costs are mainly related to the activity. This is roughly the business model of Nespresso. Okay, so it's a kind of very illustration of the model. The results are spectacular. The result is an average growth of 30% per year since at least 12 years. It represents 4 billion annual revenue with only one product line. It's quite spectacular. So purely profit company, if you want. Okay. But we could consider, and we know that because it's 6 or 8 times more the cost or the budget for a Swiss household. But in '87, with exactly the same product, they almost disappeared. They were close to the bankruptcy. And it was exactly the same product, same machine, same capsules, a contract with those big names in machine manufacturers, because Nestlé was a big name, so they were able to sign with very good company. The customer roughly the same. At the beginning, they target mainly the business and small restaurant, but it was roughly the same. One big difference, which is not related to product. It's related to distribution channels. Why? Nestlé is a B2B company. So it's not possible to go inside a Nestlé shop or store. You go to some store here, and you can find Nescafé, Buitoni, and this kind of product. So it was a B2B. And at the beginning, they say, we will adopt this attitude. So it means that the idea was to sign a contract with the machine manufacturer. You could sell your machine. And by the way, you will sell my coffee, the capsule. It was the idea, to have a joint venture with the machine manufacturers and maybe some other retailers. It was the idea at the beginning. And with this model, it seemed that it was not good. It's maybe not the alone explanation, but it's one of the explanations that you could consider for explaining why they were in bankruptcy in 87. And a new CEO came and he transformed this company in a B2C with this direct access, with this possibility to use different channels for ordering coffee and different channels for ordering the machine or buying the machines. That's the idea. Okay, we will stop here. If you have some question, I will come back. But the idea now is, okay, you know roughly what are the main components or the main components of a business model, the main blocks of a business model. So now, if I was asking the same question as at the beginning, everybody in this room could say a business model is a way of doing this with those components. Agree? So that's the idea. But when you want to create a business model, which is not just reproducing an existing one, it's different because you have to create something. You have to create the business model of your own company or to renovate the existing one or something. So what are the design thinking? And here I open a small parenthesis on what's design thinking. But I have some specialists here or experts in design. But I will just shortly give you my own vision of what design thinking is. On the right-hand side here, on the left for you, you have what I call the rational thinking, the decision-making. Most of the executives and managers has been trained for this kind of thing. They have models for choosing between this one and this one. And they have a lot of models for choosing between this one and this one. So the idea is to choose between 2, 3, 4 different alternatives. On the opposite way, you have what I call intuitive thinking or artistic thinking. So it means they are artists. They can create some artifacts, some paintings. Or it's not necessary for them to be efficient, profitable. They create something. You like, you doesn't like, that's it. And for me, in the middle, this design thinking is you have to create something and you have to create some alternatives and you will choose later between those two alternatives. So the idea is, it's not to choose between this one and this one. This is the decision-making attitude, or what I call analytical thinking. But it's to come with another alternative. So you have to open the game, and here you close the game. Decision-making, you choose between those 2 ones, 3 ones. Design thinking, you try to come with alternatives. You try to generate alternatives. That's the idea. And I will try to illustrate some techniques, and one of them that I will call multiple model or prototyping. Just this gentleman lives in front of this building in Rotman Business School, and he wrote, and he said, business people don't just need to understand designers better, they need to become designers. It means they need to be trained for coming with new alternatives, trying to generate some new ideas. That's it. And there are a lot of tools that the people in this design field, like architects, industrial designers, and this kind of people, use for creating alternatives when they create something. And I will just mention one. And I will illustrate what I have in mind when I speak about multiple model or prototyping with this gentleman that you have recognized. He has designed this building and some others, but and one here in Toronto, which is your museum, he put this big wall in front of this museum, you remember? So it's Frank Gehry. And I will tell you why I choose Frank Gehry a little bit later. So when an architect like him designs something, he first sketches different alternatives for the same building, this one, or this one, or this one. And then when he has the feeling that he could have something which is meaningful, he switches to mock-up design. Okay, he used different kinds, different size, different material, different colors, and he tried for the same building. And at the end, he will come and he will design a building, for example, this one. This one is the business school of Cleveland, Case Western Reserve University. And why I choose this one is because when he built this latest building, he has been observed by some faculty members of the business school. Business people, if you want. And they have observed him working during 2-3 years, and especially between during the design phase. And they say, wow, he doesn't work as a business guy, even if they use the same terms, okay, but with different meaning. Okay, this short video will present you those two faculty members, Dick Boland and Frank Colopi, and also you will see Frank Gehry speaking about this. What does it mean by multiple model?
The idea of multiple models is one that shows up often in conversations with designers. And most start with Frank Gehry, but one sees it in lots of other places. The basic idea is to have many models of the phenomenon that interests you, if it's a building, to have them at different scales, different kinds of models, models that feature various aspects of the thing under consideration. Now in management, that has immediate and obvious applicability. If you accept that there aren't simple solutions to most of the problems that are really of interest to us in managing enterprises, then probably these are complex phenomena, and therefore multiple views of them will be useful. It's very tempting to say, if we could just get the right model, it's far more illuminating to look at a variety of models.
First of all, I think we as faculty didn't appreciate the process that they go through of continuous refinement and continuous evolution, continuous change. So we would tend to see a model and think this was the design, as opposed to having the sensibility of being able to say, this is a direction in which this design is going to go, and we can only sort of fantasize what we're going to be able to do with this direction.
I tell clients when I start that we're going to be in a liquid state for a lot of the time. In other words, information gathering, agonizing about program, adjacencies, land use, materials, bureaucracies that we have to deal with. And during that period, we make a lot of study models. And some of them are pretty scary looking. When you show them to a client, they get pretty nervous. We call them Shrek models. It's a Yiddish expression for making people nervous. I do that so they can follow the trajectory of my thinking, but it's not predictable. It's opportunistic. I push something here, and then I see something, and then I take that and I go. So I think of it as an opportunistic kind of process that evolves with the inputs that I'm getting from the client and the world around.
The other thing is that if you freeze to an idea too quickly, you fall in love with it. If you refine it too quickly, you become attached to it.
Okay, so we will try to see something, and I will try to illustrate this a little bit differently, because Dick Boland sometimes was really upset with this process. Why? Because he is a business guy. And I think there are IT people in this room. When you speak about prototyping, you have this idea of prototyping. You come with an artifact, and you say, do you like this one? And he said, yes, I like this one. I would like this one a little bit bigger and transparent. Okay, so the second time you come, and you come with this object. And he said, yes, I like this one, and I will change all. Okay, so the idea is to refine based on some artifact that you show to people. And an architect works a little bit differently. So he comes first with a prototype, or mock-up, or architect plan, or do you like this one? Oh, yes, I like this one. I would like this one a little bit bigger and transparent. Why? Because in your mind, you are waiting for these kind of things. Okay, so next time, 1 month later, the architect comes. Do you like this one? At this moment, Dick Boland was upset. He said, because he has been trained for decision making. Hey, stop, Frank Gehry. 1 month ago, we decided that it would be wrong, a little bit bigger and transparent. And you come with something which is completely different, not fair. Okay? And Frank Gehry said, oh, yes, excuse me, Dick. Yeah, I fully agree with you. Tell me why you don't like this one? Because for him, prototyping is not a way of refining, it's a way of opening the game, trying to collect feedback, reaction, and after a long process, he will decide to build this one or this one or this one. Because at the end, he comes on the left-hand side with this decision making, because he will build only one building, one household. That's the idea. What does it mean for us at the business model level? It means that when you want to create a new company, the suggestion is not to jump on the first idea you have, but maybe to generate first different ideas, maybe not 100, but maybe 2, 3, 4, and to be in a position where you can choose, using different techniques for visualizing those prototypes. So it means that to be in a position where you don't have a choice because you have only one idea, but you have many ideas and you will choose this one because it seems that it's better than this one. This one was the first, this one was the second one. So that's the idea, to be in a position where you can choose. And if you have one idea, by definition, when you have one idea, it's the best one. When you have two, you are in a position where you have to compare and decide. And you will see in many situations when you try to practice this one inside companies, executives, especially CEOs, doesn't like to have many ideas. Because when you have one, you have to throw away one of your good ideas. Okay, so I will try to illustrate this one. And so if you freeze an idea too quickly, you fall in love with it, and you refine too quickly, it means that you become attached to it. And the second iteration is done. It will be something like this one, transparent, but you never come again with this one. That's the idea. And I will try to illustrate this with this example.
So don't fall in love with your first idea. To compete in the world where the best model wins, you'll need to think harder and explore alternatives. For example, prototype a model where you ask yourself what would happen if you gave away your value proposition for free.
Okay, so it's not in the genes of the people you say, I will offer something for free, because the question will come, oh, it's not profitable, it's not sustainable, and so on. But without this idea that they had in 58 with this company, inside this company, you never had Xerox. This company was called Alloy. They produced in 58 by, this gentleman called Chester Carlson. They came with this product, nice product. The first time it was possible to reproduce document with a dry mechanism, without water, without wetting. Perfect product. And when they tried to go on the market, big failure. Nobody was able to pay for this machine. It was much too expensive compared to the traditional way of reproducing documents. And so most of the consulting firm at that time suggested to Chester Carlson, go back in your lab and come with a product that we could put on the market. And somebody say, okay, maybe we could give those machines for free and to have the customer to pay on a monthly base. And it was a success of Xerox with 40% growth during 20 years, 22 billion company. Okay, just because they had a stupid idea at the beginning and they transformed this idea in a business model where it was possible to provide the customer with those machines for free at the beginning and then to recover this investment on a long-term basis. Okay, and so the most difficult aspects of this is to throw away idea. I guarantee you that in most of the company, and I will show you an example in a few moments, it's very difficult for them to say, maybe the first idea is not the good one, we could throw it. I will try to illustrate this one, not with this example because I've seen that the time is coming. I can come on this example, which was our own example, because at the beginning we didn't choose the Wiley directly and we come to do something a little bit different. So I will try to illustrate this with a company called Eight19. This gentleman from Cambridge, UK, observed that roughly 2 million people in the world are still living without electricity, mainly in Africa and some other countries. And they use some kind of, and he came from a lab in this university where they were able to provide people with a film, a special film, for building solar cells at a very low production cost. So he said, I have the solution for them. I will try to provide this kind of technology, not cheap, not for free, but very cheaply in some countries in the world. That's the idea. And how to provide solar cell to people who have no money. This is the solution they use normally in Kibera, for example, to have the light inside the houses. I will switch the tool, but it's the idea they have candle if you want. And so it means that they have to buy or steal oil, put that in the device that you have seen. And so it means first it's dangerous. And second, with this kind of device, it's not possible, for example, to load a phone, a mobile phone or this kind of things. So he said, I will replace this device, basic device, with oil and candles, with electricity. That's the idea. And he came with this idea, okay, the value propositions will be help people light their home cheaply using solar power through some NGOs or local vendors to rural, at the beginning, he has in mind, African consumers who have no access to electricity, mainly Kibera, so this big slums near Nairobi, with a purchasing fee. And he adapted the left-hand side, he had the license, he had this very strong partnership with Cambridge, kind of spin-off of Cambridge, the solar NGOs, the manufacturing partners, because since the beginning he decided, I'm too small to manufacture the panel, that I will have to somebody to do it and so on. And the question was, okay, it's a good first idea, but why maybe don't the rural consumers switch to solar energy with this thing? It was just because it's too expensive. Roughly, the device is around $100. And they spend roughly $10 for buying oil to put in the previous device. So it's the difference is too high, if you want, for them. So it means that they had to invest 10 times, 12 times the amount of money they use monthly, on a monthly basis for the traditional lighting systems. So he say, okay, the first idea is not a good one. And I will throw away this idea. I will come with this Xerox idea. I will offer this device for free, and I will recover my investments later. Okay, so he decided to, okay, I can give the panels away for free to eliminate this hurdle of the upfront investment. And he came with a solution. So he said, okay, I will run this device. I will have a regular payments coming every month, for example. So it means that I own those solar energy installation, okay, and I will recover this investment exactly as the Xerox or the SunEdisson that we have seen this morning. So he had a second question. Okay, it's a second idea, but maybe it's not the best one. Why? How to recover regular payments? Here it's quite easy. You have banks or you have credit cards, and so you can pay every month something. In Africa, it's not clear, or you pay somebody every month something. Cash, okay, but it's very difficult to scale up with this kind of things. Okay, so he said, maybe we have to come with a third idea, because this system doesn't work there, in this context, in this situation. So he said, okay, the second idea was not a good one, and he came with a third one, and we will see in the future if it's a good one, because they launched this company with this business model. They say they use this kind of device. So we will offer the electricity inside the house plus the possibility to charge this one. Just one. And the solution was this one. They have adopted a pay-as-you-go solution. I will try to explain you how it works. Okay, so they mix electricity, solar panel on the top, and this device. So you have to buy some scratch cards, and you punch the numbers that you have on those cards, and it gives electricity for roughly 1 week. So you invest first $10, corresponding to your budget for 1 month. Then, if you want to have electricity inside your house, you buy a scratch card, you scratch the number, you punch the number on this device, and you have the electricity for 1 bubble lamp, and one lamp, not bubble one, but one LED light, LED lamp, and one charging one phone. That's the idea. And when you scratch 80 times, it's for free. You own the installation yourself. Okay, roughly $8, $80 plus 10, it was roughly the cost of the devices at the beginning. Or you could upgrade the solution if you have more lamps inside your house or more possibility to charge your phone. This is the model. And with this model, and so they changed a little bit. They called that Indigo. They came with these devices. And they had two kinds of revenue. One is the first upfront investment plus the repetitive stretch. That's the idea. The result was for people. Initially, they had to spend $10 for having light inside the house with the device that you have seen. And now it's roughly $4, so $1 per week, roughly. Okay, so it's good for people. They try a proof of concept with 4,000 last year, and they receive some grants because you need to invest in the installation. You remember, because they own the installation, and so they receive some funds, and so they hope to have 30,000 systems sold this year. There are some other people, like one of the Grameen companies offer also some electricity inside some poor countries and so on. But this is a business model on which you can see that the first idea was not directly the good one. So they had to look something which is not related to the product. The product was the same, but they had to find something at the revenue model, at the changing a little bit the value proposition and so on. And so that's for the design thinking techniques. The last one, I promised you to speak a little bit about testing a model. What does it mean, testing a model? Inside the company, there are a lot of techniques for testing some strategies or some ideas that you have. It's called SWOT, like with the strengths and the weaknesses and trying to find. You could find the strengths and the weaknesses using this business model for structuring your analysis. There's one technique. And there are some other, and the executives normally know those. One which is not clear is what we called, and Steve Lang initially called, customer development. What does it mean? It means that, and oh yes, before to explain you why, I will choose this device. You know this flow device? You have seen this on the small video at the beginning, flow. This device, who knows? No, has been designed 4 or 5 years ago by Qualcomm, the big, huge company. And they came with this device. The idea was to watch television and movies on a small device connected to the waves, so a mobile device, but dedicated to watching films and movies and television broadcasting. So they had this idea, and in this case, it was the CEO of the company who had this idea, one idea. And since it's a very good company with good engineers, business analysts, business developers, software developers, and so on, they built everything. So they designed the device. They manufactured the device. They signed a contract with all the content providers. They bought the license to operate in this mobile context. They launched a product. 6 months later, they stopped. No customers. Okay, and they spend roughly $1 billion. Okay, with one idea. Because they never thought that it's maybe necessary to check with the customers that maybe on some other coming devices it was also possible to watch television or watch devices. They were convinced that you need a dedicated device and you can use this dedicated device. So what does it mean for us in business model level? It means that when you have designed a business model using these techniques or inside a board meeting or with the different entrepreneurs where you try to say, oh, I have a good idea, I will try to get money from the VCs and so on, and I will prepare a business model or a business plan. It's only a set of hypotheses. You have this hypothesis that okay, those kind of customers could be interested in this kind of value proposition, and they will spend money for this, and you have this hypothesis that you need to have these resources, or you don't have these resources, so you need to sign a contract, and blah, blah, and so on. And Steve Lang, an entrepreneur in the Silicon Valley, and also authors, came and say, there is no fact inside the building. You have to go outside. You have to check your ideas with the customers. Maybe with some other stakeholders, but that is with the customers. And checking is not only, are you interested in a product? Why? Because if I come and I say, are you interested in this product? I will have this product on the market in 1 year. He says, yes, I'm interested in. 1 year later, I come and I present, you buy? Oh, no, I changed my mind. So he is not really engaged, if you want. But if I come, are you interested in this product? Yes. Okay. You will buy it? Yes. Give me the money? No. So I take 100 Swiss francs, put in the pocket, and in 1 year I will come back and I will give this. If he pays me, it means that he is more engaged. So there are different techniques which is not only interviewing customers. It's also some other technique that you just want to mention one of them. And so you need to test each hypothesis. And so we came with this idea to test each hypothesis of the business model before launching the company. That's the idea. And so he called that the pivoting. So it means that if you are not sure that the customers are following you, you change the business model, you refine the business model. In the new classes that he has, and using customer development and the business model canvas, on 10 weeks, the students have to generate 10 different versions of the business model, and between each version, they have to interview and to collect data from at least 10 customers, different customers. So it means on 10 weeks, they had to meet 100 customers. And if 1 week they don't come with the results of 10 interviews, 10 discussion, 10 survey with people and so on, they are out of the course, all out of the course. So it means that they have to come. And if you look at the business models, the first one and the last one, they are normally very different first, and this one is much more mature, okay, because of this. And if you don't do it, you have this phenomenon which is quite normal in most of the situations. You burn your cash. That's the idea. And so the idea is to avoid. In some places, Silicon Valley, it's normal because, okay, you launch something with your money as a VC. If I'm successful, you will be successful also. If not, oh, you lose your money. Okay, that's for you. Okay, but in different countries, it's not the case. In Asia, they don't like to play this game. They prefer to be sure that it will be successful. And so they have another way of funding the companies. And that's the idea. And I mentioned it.
I'm talking to Steve Flake, the serial entrepreneur who popularized the lean startup movement. So my last question is for business owners out there who are struggling, trying to figure out how to adapt to this new world that we're in. What do you advise them to do?
You know, we now know something that we didn't know 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. And we now know how to make companies fail less. If I'm a small business owner, I want to go, say that again, how do we make them fail less? And the real key idea that I'm trying to get the SBA to even understand, because if you look at the SBA.gov website, here's where we've gone wrong. You know what they say to, if you want to start a company? Go write a business plan. It's truly on the SBA.gov website. It looks like the 1950s.
That's the old way of doing
Right,
things.
that's the old way of doing things. What we now know, and what I think we need to be teaching small businesses, well, we now know what works for the 1%. The high growth tech startups work for the 99%. The same strategy of actually using a business model canvas, of using customer development to get outside the building, to rapidly prototyping.
And those three last comments correspond to what I've seen today. So the business model canvas that we could use for structuring your ideas or your brainstormings or your ideation process. Some design thinking techniques. One of them that we have seen is prototyping, to come with different alternatives, open the game and then choose. And then the last one was testing some ideas before to go further, before to launch a company, before to implement your business model if you want. So we were focused on business model design. When you try to search the best one, and at this level trying to test, not only inside with some traditional business techniques if you want, but with this idea to go outside and to test the pain, the gain the customer have, and the jobs they have to do, and this kind of things for testing. And so we, by the way, we focus on three different takeaways. The first one is focusing on product innovation is not enough. We have seen that with Nespresso. The product itself doesn't explain the success. It's necessary to have a product innovation, clearly, but it's not enough. They had to change a little bit the business model, switching from a B2B to a B2C model in this case. Don't fall in love with your first idea, so try to come and to force you to generate maybe 2-3 ideas before to jump and to launch the company or launch a project or launch a renovation. And finally, until it's in the market, there is no proof that it's the best model on paper will work. So you have to test those hypotheses on which you build this business model. And here I stop, I will pick up some questions, and I will give you an homework after. Question?
Okay, so we're ready for some questions.
Yes.
I presume that you're familiar with Sarah Stothy's work on effectuation. And she talks a little bit about trying to get people to self-select into your business to help with the development of the ultimate product that will suit their needs. And I'm just wondering, what do you include that kind of a notion, or are there additional alternatives to use your design thinking approach towards testing your business model? What are the alternatives for testing a business model?
Okay. First, I told you, I just present one of those techniques. There are plenty of them. We have covered in the book some of them. We still, during the workshop, we use some other customer insight, storytelling, blah, blah, and so on. And effectuation could be one. Could be one technique that you could appropriate in your situation to design something, or to elaborate, or to refine something. That's first. The second question, because I think it's two different questions, you say, what kind of techniques we could use for testing a business model? Okay, so it's not designing inside the lab. It's when you go out, what kind of techniques you could use for testing. And I mentioned this idea that, okay, you could mention with customers, you could mention, you could test because you're asking some question, you try to explore, you use some ethnographic techniques for collecting data. So there are a lot of different techniques that you could use for testing some ideas that you have at the design stage, or you have at the beginning of your process, or you have at the end of the process, and it's maybe not the same one. I agree that, so the idea was not to say we covered all the possible techniques, we cover some of them, and we are open because we say it's just a toolbox. So it seemed that in this situation, it's enough to have the contact with the customer. In some other, it's necessary to build a prototype of your product and to go outside. I will give you just a short example. In Asia, I was in contact with another division of Nestle, and it's a product for elder people. And they were able to test, because they have good IT people, the screen, okay, and the interaction, and testing the usability of this application for all people to order something. And they say, okay, done, we have tested. So now we can launch this activity, this new activity. It seems that it has been well accepted by people. And we say, oh, stop. There is another aspect of this. They order something and they will receive it by mail or by a logistics company. Maybe we could test also this one, because the contact with the customer, this kind of customers, this customer segment could be different. Okay, so we will, and they have developed a system where for very few numbers of those elder people, they have this impression that the system is fully operational. They order something, and the day after, they have something coming in their house or in their condo. And so they had this impression that the system is fully operational, but in fact, everything has been done using ad hoc techniques, okay, just for them. So if they order something in the next, hey, you order something, boom, boom, you assemble everything, you put them, so it's testing also. And you test not only the interface or the interaction or the usability, but also some other parts of your activity, because in your value proposition, you don't have only a channel for ordering, you have also a channel for delivering, to be in contact, what kind of relation you have between the people coming with the goods and the customers.
I think this was one of the important things for me in your list of takeaways that you mentioned earlier. You should test each hypothesis.
That's it. Right? That's the idea. And also, to be honest, it's not possible to test all the hypotheses with the customers. On the right-hand side, for you, it's possible, because the customers see all of those components. But sometimes on the left-hand side, it's not so easy. So you have to test some of those hypotheses with your suppliers or with your partners, or sometimes with the funding actors or stakeholders. Because for example, in this 819, since you own those installations, you want to put 4,000, 30,000 of those installations on the rooftops. So it means that you own those, you have to invest yourself. So it means you need more money from your funding stakeholders, partners. And so this, even if the customers say, yes, it's very interesting to have this product because I just pay as I go with this system, I don't have to invest, and at the end of the day, it's less expensive, it's $4 and not 10, perfect. So the hypothesis has been checked. But if you don't have the money for funding this company, and for funding the company, you need to check this hypothesis that I can have this resource, which is the amount of money for covering 30,000 installations. And for testing this hypothesis, I have to ask not to the customer, but maybe to the funders, like foundations or some other actors giving money to be able to run this business, which is not covered in this business model, in the business model canvas. The resource is there. The question about the funding is outside for me. Is how you fund a business model, or how you finance a business model. Yes?
Yes, so I see how the canvas works for a business, but is there any way that this template scales down to the individual?
Oh.
You can almost map out your own.
Good. I don't know if you have been informed by Eric, but we have published last year a second book called Business Model U. Okay, which is the idea that we could use this canvas not for describing the business model of a company, but using canvas for defining your own activity or your own business or your own life. And so we use the same canvas, but we rephrase the different terms. Okay, so it's the value proposition has been changed a little bit, the key channel. But the idea is exactly the same canvas. And so we have written this book with Tim Clark. He used to be the copy editor of the first one, and he suggested that we could use this one. But this one is not for business people. It's much more for individuals and also for coaches. So it has been supported by the American Association of Coaches and this. But the idea is yes. But maybe if you read this book, you agree or not with this idea, because the traditional people in leadership and organizational behavior are not very enthusiastic with this idea that we can represent the people as 9 blocks as a business model and blah, blah.
So not only do you have to come up with creative ideas using design thinking, you have to do it fast before Professor Pigneur has written this next book.
No. The next book is related to a concept that we have observed that the value proposition is not so easy to define. The concept is quite clear. It's the offering for the customers, it's the benefits for the customer, but it's not so easy to design. And so we came with another, what we call add-on canvas, which is a canvas when you want to focus on this value proposition and to relate this value proposition with the kind of behavior the customers could have. So, and we call that empathy map. So we try to project ourselves in the mind of the customers for detecting what are the jobs to be done, what are the pains he could have, or what are the gains he traditionally have without this product or without this service. And then we try to make a correspondence between this kind of jobs to be done, pains and gains, with the value proposition level, where we say some of those features have to address the jobs to be done, some other as to create new gains for the customers, and some as to retain some pains and to relieve some pains from the customers. And so we try to have a better fit between the customer's mind, if you want, and the value proposition, without the necessity to be a good ethnographer, because we know that in the design field they use this kind of techniques much more sophisticated to appreciate and to perceive the needs of the customers and so on. But with, again, some kind of basic simplified tool trying to detect this kind of things, what we call empathy map, and with the fit, with the good features of the value. But this one won't be a book, but maybe a booklet. Or we were still hesitating on the form of this one.
And you don't have to pay in advance.
No. Oh, you speak about this one because when we have written this book with Alex, we decided, okay, we want to go with the traditional way. So it's you write a manuscript, you send to the publisher, you are waiting for the reply, and then you print the book and so on. So we decided to, and he knows that because he was one of the contributor, co-designer. It means we say, hey, we will write a book. Are you interested in? You will receive 1 chapter every 2, 3, 4 weeks. Okay? And so he said yes. And he came on board of this activity. And they receive a chapter every 2-3 weeks. They were able to comment, and we collected roughly 2,000 comments, 1,600 comments. And we promised that we'll try to make our best effort to take into consideration those comments when we have written each chapter at the end. And based on what you mentioned now, we say, okay, you are a good partner, and we had in total 470 or something. And we say, that's good, but we would like to test the idea. Not only, okay, you could come, see the chapter, give some comment. You come, hey, please give me $25. For us, it was an indication, it was a kind of test. If 500 people are ready to pay for something which doesn't exist, the idea maybe good. But by the way, we changed a little bit of strategy in the process. At the beginning, we say, give me 25, but each time we reach 50 more, we say, we double. And at the end, they paid 250 for a book who was $30 something. And so with this amount of money, we invested for the printer and something, but it was for us a test of the ideas, because we have no name. We don't come from a big university with Alex in Lausanne. Second, for testing a little bit further, at the end of the process, when we had a kind of prototype of the book, roughly design and so on, we say, we will organize an event in Amsterdam. You can come, okay, but you have to pay $900 or something for one day. And so I think 120 or 50 people came. And so we say, wow, people without having a finished book are ready to come to attend a kind of event based on business model and presenting this concept, and the book has been written, and some experience we already had with some companies. We say, we have a good idea. And with this, we decided to launch. So it means that we found a printer in Amsterdam. We printed 5,000 copies. It was our objective at the time. And we make a deal with a logistic company. It was in 2008 or 9, beginning of 9. And it was a nightmare. Sending book at home in 2008 was a nightmare. We had problems with customs, with postal offices and this. So we said, whoa, it's not our job. So we decided to switch. And in fact, we come here in Toronto. We found a printer in Toronto. We asked him to print again 14,000. And we used a new distribution channel. Amazon.com. It was just perfect from a operations point of view. Little bit more expensive because Amazon took, I think, 40% of our revenue, but okay, but it works. And when we reached 14,000, Wiley came, but we were in a good position to impose our conditions, if you want. And it was impossible at the beginning. We asked them color. They said no at the beginning. We said, okay, we will go outside, somewhere else, because we had 40,000 behind us. And so they accepted color. They accepted this flat format. They accepted blah, blah, and so on. And now we are happy to have switched from the previous self-published business model towards the traditional one, but 1 year later, because they are in charge of everything. It included the translation, and this 27 or 29 translation has been signed, bargained, negotiated by them. And for us, book is over, if you want, just receiving the money, some comments, because the app is still active. On this app, we now have 15,000 people trying to have some kind of forum discussions. And in fact, the people monitoring this is a Canadian guy from Ottawa, Mike Lachapelle. That's the idea. And for coming back to the book that you mentioned, Business Model U, we replicate the same mechanisms. So it means we will write a book, you will receive the chapter, you have to pay for seeing, and so on. And now this book is coming much behind a business model generation, but I think we already have 12 or 15 translations and so on. And we have just proved that it was not the first and it was okay. No, the second one has been designed with the same techniques. Very good design, people paying before sewing the book and this kind of thing.
I have a question that also involves the testing stage. When you have a long development period, use your prototype to communicate to your potential customers. There's this decision to be made. When do you start? Sure. And there are many elements that sort of inform that decision, including possibly packages that you have to
I fully agree with you.
So what are some of the rules?
No, there are no
It's very
rules. It's very complicated and no rules. And why no rules? There are so many diversified, a large variety of businesses. And depending the field in which you are, depending on the resource you already have and this kind of thing, the solution is always different. You have to keep in mind, there is no recipe to be successful with a business. It's always, you have to take risks, you have to create something, you have to test, and sometimes you are successful, sometimes not. So this aspect of the business is true for 2,000 or 3,000 years. And it didn't change with these techniques. These techniques tell you that maybe you could spend a little bit less money or burn your cash before trying to test some idea. That's the idea, that's it. And now, depending the field in which you are, the industry, the sector in which you are, you will adapt. And you know why you are limited in your experience. It's not possible to burn money during 3 years for just developing something and observing 3 years later because you don't have enough money for doing it. So most of the time, you are limited just because the amount of money that you could put at the design stage is limited. I think no standard solution. You have to find your own, and also you have to experiment and take some risk. And I think it's the clear rule for entrepreneurs. They take risk. Okay? And so you
really have to play it by the ear, given your market and the product.
Sure, and also you will try to see, okay, I'm ready to go with this proof of concept a little bit further, or I have to stop before. For this one, I have to invest 100. For this one, 10. Okay, I could be in the middle. Okay, I could go a little bit further. So I think it's a decision which is unique for each business. Maybe in some businesses, you have some standard. You have some standard numbers. You say, okay, for putting a product of this kind, semiconductor, on the market, or a new medicine, you need 1 billion because you have to pass this stage, this stage, this stage. So there are some standard numbers in some field. You know that you have to invest at least this kind of money just for testing something and blah, blah. But in some businesses, it's much less clear, much less clear. So you have to try to find and to balance your the money that you can burn before when you are searching the right business model with the money that you have. Okay, I have to launch something. That's the idea of minimum viable product. You launch something. You know that it's not perfect. You will improve this when you are running this process or when you are running this business. So I think it's a choice.
I have a question about it. So you said from the doctoral dissertation to the book, the eventual great commercial success, what you had to go through was simplify, simplify, and simplify. So I'm wondering what you had to throw out as you were going through that process.
Good question.
And did you have tough decisions to make? Things that you really didn't want to let go, but you just had to in order to simplify.
So just to remind a couple of dates. The model has been roughly designed. The ideas of the questions behind those 9 blocks has been defined in the end of the 90s. The idea at that time was, I'm on a campus where we have an engineering school, the business schools, and you remember 90s means that internet started. So we had a lot of people in the School of Computing. And in Switzerland, a student in engineering school roughly had 20 hours on how to write a business plan. So very few capabilities in business. And so they came, hey, prof, you couldn't see my business plan because I need to go to the bank and so on. And I observed at that time that most of them had no clear idea of their own business. And so I was asking questions. So we came with something covering roughly those 9 questions. With Alex, from 2000-2004, we defined the 9 blocks. But in fact, at that time, it was not 9 blocks. It's what 9 components of 4 business model ontology with a lot of different characteristics on each of those blocks and with a lot of relationships between those blocks or those components. Okay. And 2004, it has been published, finished. The academic life of this BMO stopped roughly between 2004 and 2006, if you want. And between 2004, 5 and 2008, we live in the same village with Alex, and we continue to say, okay, first, we would like to write a book in the future. We didn't know at that time when. And second, if we want to use this business model with not only students in engineering school or school of computing, but also with executives in the company and entrepreneurs outside the university, we need to have something which is first simpler and visual. It was our intuition. It was based on, because when we try with the students, even at the bachelor level, we have observed that if they have to manipulate a lot of boxes or rows, it's complicated. And much more complicated for executives and especially top people. So we say, we will simplify. And we try to, and we tested different alternatives. We used the strategic map from BSc, Kaplan Norton. We use this one as a way of representing the different concepts. So we map all 9 blocks with those blocks, and we try to use it, and we test it during workshops and so on. And then we say maybe this seems to be correct if we keep the conceptual schema we had at that time, and we just plug this idea of spaces and the 9 spaces on the 9 blocks we have. And since 2000 and 2002 maybe, the block didn't change. So we kept the same basic components, the basic block that you have seen today. And what we have removed mainly is the relationships first, and all the characteristics that we had introduced for each block. For example, for the distribution channel, we have what we call the distribution activities and the different channels, and we use some kind of matrices for representing this one. So we simplify, we move everything, we keep the 9 blocks, and we keep all the questions related to the 9 blocks, and that's it. So we decide to have the visual representation and the question associated. That's the story, and then in 2008 we write a book with this simplified vision. Okay, so we launched a book, success, and we organized since 2009 or 10 maybe 100 workshops or maybe more, and keynotes and talks, and so maybe 200 or. And we have observed that for most of the people, when they start to use the canvas, they use this canvas as a checklist. They say, yes, I have a distribution channel. I have a partner. I have an activity or 3 activities. That's fine. I have a good business model. And we say, hey, what's the relationship between these resources, this value proposition, and this customer? Try to explain me. No, I have these resources because I've seen that all the competitors have these resources, so I put that there. And what's the difference between this value proposition and this one, and why you have 2 different ones, but for only one kind of customers? Or vice versa, you have 2 different customers, but only one value proposition, and no revenue streams, or somewhere. And so we came with this idea of what we call business model dynamics or mechanics, and which is in a way for reintroducing some kind of very simplifying, again, relationship on which it's part, and you have seen this on the gramming phone, you have seen some arrows on between some blocks, and that's the idea. And we use these blocks for enforcing people to explain why they need this block, why this block is related. If I remove this value proposition, what kind of resources I can remove or simplify or decrease or increase or this kind of thing. And so this one, so we went with a sophisticated one, simplified, and no, it's not a way, we don't come back to the previous one. We just try to recreate a little bit this kind of relationship mechanism with a vision which is not sophisticated semantics on each of those relationships, but something which is much more this component influence or is related to this one. And so we ask people to come in, and when they pitch the idea, and we have developed some, in the design thinking techniques, we also develop a very I think a good way for pitching ideas around a business model, which is never for presenting everything, but it's representing the different components one by one. So it means that we have a canvas here, we have one in front of everybody, and when the people pitch the story, they take one post-it at a time, and they put at the right place. And so people attending the pitch could understand because they speak, but also they can see what components is related with which one. That's the idea, to use this business mechanics as a support of the storytelling of your business model. But I didn't show that today, but we have also some videos for them. Because we have developed a software after 2008 when the book was starting, and we started first with an iPad app, and we sold, I think, 50,000 copies of this one in the last 2 years. And recently, last year, we launched a web app, and the web app has been developed here in Toronto, first by a software company, a software house, and then now we have recruited 4 or 5 developers for continuing. The iPad solution is good for entrepreneurs more because you have 2 on the table and you change a little bit the position of the post-it and you put post-it. And the advantage when you have a computer, you could use some computer-aided design facilities. So you can simulate with numbers. You could put numbers on the revenue. You can have some equations if you want, rules for calculating revenues, cost, and having some kinds of very easy simulation. And the web app is much more for the big companies because they have to share models. They have to work on the same model simultaneously and remotely and this kind of things. And they work on different models and so they have different, and the pricing is completely different. This one is $30. This one is a monthly subscription.
Okay, so let's thank Professor Pigneur. One more thing that we learned to have a successful business model is that you need to be in front.
Yeah, sure. So no homework today.